everybody. I am live. I hope everyone can hear me. Just let me make a few adjustments here so that I'm not looking all over the place. I hope that everyone is able to see me and hear me. If you're on here live and you can't see or hear me, just kind of like raise your hand, let me know, send me a note. I wanted to do just an impromptu live today. I usually give everyone about a 24-hour notice, but there are a couple of things on my mind, so I thought I would talk about those and do my Trailblazing trademark also. So I'm not sure what everyone would want to hear first. I'm going to give people a little time to get in to this room, and hopefully I am appearing on Facebook. Sometimes I just don't even get Facebook. It drives me absolutely crazy in terms of like just the tech aspects of it. So I don't know if I'm just not like with the program or what's going on. But I do see that I am on Facebook. It does look like there's a little bit of a delay in what I'm saying and what's actually popping up on Facebook. So I will try to get to your questions if you have them. And as soon as this wraps, this will also stay on Facebook. And of course, feel free to ask me any follow-up questions you might have. And then finally, I will be pushing this video also to YouTube, so you can grab it there. But just a little bit about what I've been up to. I just got back from an awesome business retreat in beautiful San Diego. I had such a wonderful time and got to hang out with my awesome friend Karen Gwartzman, who's with Private Label University, and they do a lot of helping people with the blueprint of their private label business, and they really work on proper product selection. And one thing that I love about what they do, in addition to their hands-on teaching, they help people select their products from a very thoughtful and intentional position. And I love that. I think it's really important for people to, when they're getting into the private label world, or any product that they're wanting to roll out, like pick that product, select that product from a very intentional standpoint. Software is great. I think it's good to use software to maybe just kind of run some numbers, but don't let that be your final decision. Like, use your gut. It's okay to use your gut when you're doing this. I think that's so important. So use your gut when you're selecting products. Pick a passion product. And that might not mean what you think it means. When I say pick a passion product, I mean pick a product that kind of surrounds like something that you love. Is there a hobby or a sport that you love? Like, for example, I love skiing, and I've kind of thought about maybe doing my own private labeling at some point of ski-related products. One thing that I think that would be really cool in that space would be ski wear at a more affordable price. A lot of the ski wear that I see from some of the big brands like Fire and Ice are just, they're expensive. So I don't know, something I'm thinking about. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. But I know that would be something that I would really be putting my heart and soul into it, because it's something that I love. And my experience, and I've worked with hundreds of people in the private label world, my experience has been the people who are intentional and purposeful in selecting their products have the most success, and they have the most long-term longevity, because they have selected their products intentionally and not just use some type of platform or some type of software. So guys, please be intentional with that, and think about reaching out to Karen and Neil Gwartzman at Private Label University to help you. They're actually doing a core, their blueprint live in Denver in, I think it's the end of September. And if you want any details or anything like that, specifics about their program, feel free to reach out to me. You can also visit them at privatelabeluniversity.com, and you can learn more about their live program. And also, if you let them know that I sent you, and then you come back and let me know that you've registered, I am going to give you I'm going to give you free access to my Trademark Trailblazer course, because I think it's so important that you select your products at the same time that you're creating your brand name. It's really great to try to do that at the same time. So reach out to me. I'm going to be looking for questions as they pop up, but the first thing that I wanted to talk about today were some of the biggest mistakes that I see trademark owners making. And I've been a trademark attorney I've been an IP attorney for 15 years. So I started out with patent work and did that for a couple of years, and then quickly evolved into trademark work, which I love. Some of the biggest mistakes I'm seeing, first of all, is they're not registering their trademark. They're just hoping that their common law uses are going to be good enough. And guys, the great thing about getting your trademark registered is you have presumptive rights as of the date that you first started using the trademark or the date that you filed it. And that's your constructive date of first use, and that's throughout the United States. So generally I'm talking about U.S. law unless I specifically say this is an international issue. So that's so important. Get your trademark registered. It's, in terms of value, I just really feel like brand protection and putting money in that has the most bang for your buck. And patents ultimately expire. Copyrights will eventually expire. I can't remember exactly how long it is. It's like the life of the author plus 70 years. I feel like that plus X number of years increases every so often, so I kind of forget. But your trademark rights can last as long as you continue to use the trademark and as long as you maintain your registration. So that's another thing. If you do have a trademark registered already and you're not represented by counsel, make sure that you know about your maintenance deadlines. This is so important. You do not want your trademark to expire for failure to provide the proper maintenance documents. So important. Another big issue that I see a lot of brand owners make is they don't do the clearance search before they file, or they don't do a clearance search before they just start using it. And you can do a lot of clearance searching on your own. You can, of course, use Google. You can use uspto.gov. It's a little clunky. There are a few other platforms out there that you can use for free. One is called Knowem, and that's KNOWEM as in mom.com. And that is a free resource that you can use to check trademarks across common law. So you can look at what's being used as social media handles. That's super important to look at that, more for just due diligence. Hold on one second. I have a little dog with me, and she has managed to escape. I'm gonna recover her. Come here, Sadie. This is Sadie, and she managed to escape on me. She does that. So now she's going to sit in my lap. But yeah, I take Sadie with me to work pretty much every day. I love having my little critter with me. So I now have her in my lap, and she has just said hi. So if you hear any jingling, that's what that is. But back to clearance searching, you can do a lot of this on your own. Now you might want to think about outsourcing that search, and that's something that you can do. Most law firms will do what's called a comprehensive trademark search for you, and it's a lot more robust searching. It's great for searching the different parameters of the mark. So for example, if your mark can be spelled many different ways, then it will search all those different ways, and it will search across a lot of different databases. So it's definitely worth considering. Generally, these are really expensive. I've seen the pricing vary so wildly. Like my flat rates for comprehensive searches currently is $1,500. And I asked around recently and found out that some people were doing them for $2,500. And then I saw somewhere an attorney was doing the searching for $1,000 plus the filing. And I don't even understand how an outsourced search can be done for that cheap of a price, because part of a lot of these fees is is actually goes to the third party platform that most firms hire to do the actual searching. And I use a company called CompuMark, and that's COMPUMARK. They've been around for a long time. They're very reputable. They do great work, and they, their searches are not cheap, but they do a great job. And you don't have to have an attorney to order a search like that from CompuMark. Now, if you're spending that kind of money already on that robust type of a search, it probably makes sense to have an experienced trademark attorney review those results and analyze them for you. So that's the second kind of biggest mistake that I see. I see, this is a big one. A lot of people think that obtaining the domain name is sufficient for trademark protection, or that it counts as use of their trademark. So please keep in mind that a domain name is merely an address. It's a location. It's like where you live, and it does not substantiate your trademark use rights. Now, having the pure domain name can be nice from a marketing perspective, but if you're going through the process of trademark creation and you look to see if the domain name is available and it's not, don't discard an otherwise totally awesome trademark just because you cannot get the pure domain name. Now, it would be worthwhile to investigate and try to figure out, well, why is this domain taken? Who's the entity behind it? Is there anything on this website that can be considered similar to what I want to do? So it's good for investigating, but if you cannot get the pure domain name, don't think that, that trademark's already in use, or it's super important to have that pure domain name, because it's not. There are a lot of really creative domain names that you can get, that would be great from a marketing perspective. So keep that in mind. So another big issue that I see, and this is usually people with post-registration rights, is that they're not properly monitoring or enforcing their trademarks. Getting the trademark registered is just half the battle. If you want to grow and develop strength in that trademark, you really need to enforce it. If you come across possible infringers, and how do you come across possible infringers? You need to monitor your trademark. You can do that on your own. Again, it's something you can outsource to a third party, including your law firm, either one, but make sure that you are outsourcing, or that you're at least monitoring your trademark. You could, one thing that you could do if you want to do it on your own is just put it in your Google Calendar to check the USPTO once a month to see if anything's been filed. Now, you do have limitations on how you can monitor, right? Like, you could spend all day looking at certain variations of your mark, but you could do that and just check the internet. You could also set up Google Alerts if you want to do it on your own. Again, I outsource monitoring for my clients to CompuMark, and I get a notice every few days of results that have popped up from that monitoring, and I can take a little closer look at those results, and decide, is this worth letting the client know about, and say, hey, I think we have an issue here. That's good practice. If you want to grow, strengthen your trademark, please consider monitoring it either on your own and outsourcing, and be ready to enforce it. Super, super important. Another issue that I see sometimes, I don't see it as much in the private label space, I see it more in situations where people are actually creating their own products, is that they're letting their trademarks die by what's called genericide. And that's when they have allowed the use of their trademark to become so pervasive in the general lexicon that everyone is using it generically. And an example of that would be, I've got a lot of examples. This is a really fascinating topic to me. One example would be Band-Aids. So Band-Aid is a brand. It's Band-Aid brand bandages. And I know that you're not going to tell your kiddos, go grab a Band-Aid brand bandage. Now, the best practice would be go grab a bandage. I know a lot of us, and I'm guilty of it. I'm the same. And I'm aware of this. But we'll just say, grab a Band-Aid, right? Or we'll say something like, we use Xerox this for me. Xerox is a brand name, and it should not be used as a verb. You don't go Xeroxing something. You go make a copy of something. You go print something on a Xerox brand printer. Another one is Jell-O. It's Jell-O brand gelatin. Another is rollerblades. That's a brand. You don't go rollerblading. You go inline skating on your rollerblade brand inline skates. Another example would be Jacuzzi. Jacuzzi brand spas and hot tubs. So a lot of these companies that have had brand names that have become at risk of becoming generic have really been working proactively in educating their consumers about proper use of their brand names. And it's hard, and I do the same thing. I might say, please hand me a Kleenex. But, hey, Jim, so good to see you. Hand me that Kleenex. No, hand me the Kleenex brand tissue. So that's so important to not only use our own trademarks properly, but make sure that we're respecting the use of other companies' trademarks. It's hard to do. I understand. I make the same mistakes. But that brings me, I had a really good question the other day. Someone asked me, well, what if I create a product? How do I tell people, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, well, what you do is you create a generic name for the product, and you also create a brand name. And you use them differently in your copy. You use it differently in your, on your website, your product, and your packaging. So you would have in all caps, or within a design logo, for example, you would state the brand name and then the little TM if you haven't registered yet, or the R in the circle if you've had it registered, and then you write out what the generic name is. So an example would be, and I'm going to use an example of something that's now a generic term, but aspirin. Aspirin was once, I believe it was owned by Bayer, but it was once a registered trademark, and it should be aspirin. It should have been aspirin brand painkiller, pain reliever. But yeah, so that's really important. It's one way that you can do it, and a lot of it comes down to properly educating the consumer about what your brand is and about what the generic name of the product is. So I think that's really important if you're creating your own products. You got two jobs. You got to create the brand name, and you're going to have to create the generic term. So another problem I'm seeing a lot of people do is failing to use their R in the circle registration symbol once you get your trademark registered. So you've gone through a whole lot to finally get that registration. So use your R in the circle. You don't have to use it everywhere in your copy, because that can look really weird from an aesthetic standpoint. I get that. But in your most prominent use of your trademark, use that R in the circle. Now, it's a common misconception that the TM is only for trademarks that are pending registration, that have been filed for, and that is not true. The TM can be used for any trademark that you're claiming rights to, even if you haven't filed yet. So use that TM. You can do that, as long as you're not infringing anyone else's trademarks. Go for it. Let's see, I think I had one more. Oh, and I mentioned this briefly already, is failing to keep up with your trademark registration and failing to file the appropriate maintenance documents when those deadlines come around. And those deadlines are kind of hard to keep up with, because after you get your registration, your first filing doesn't come due until between the 5th and 6th year after registration. So, what do? Well, first of all, most of us If you're using a paper calendar, it's like, are you supposed to like buy a calendar for the next 5 years? Well, one thing you can do is use Google Calendars, which I love. I am kind of addicted to their online calendar, and I've used it for years and years. And it's a perpetual calendar. So that's really one cool thing. And of course, you can, if you have an attorney, your attorney will docket that for you and let you know about those deadlines. So that's kind of a benefit of getting an attorney to help you with your trademark maintenance, is, those reminders can be so important. Okay, so those are my 7 big trademark mistakes that I've seen. I've got a very antsy dog that she's not happy in my lap right now. I want to talk with you all about some scams that I'm seeing. And I always try to remind people about these. Here's a client who got one recently from the Patent and Trademark Office, registration and renewal service. They are wanting $890 for a class maintenance plus $295. And this is sort of what it looks like. So please be on the lookout for these things that these scam companies send to people. The only people asking you for money should be your trademark attorney that you've hired, or the USPTO. But the USPTO will not proactively email you and ask you for money. They may send you information, right? But they're not going to be like, hey, go here and pay. You'll be asked to pay if you've gone onto the platform and maybe you're doing some maintenance document filings, or you filed a trademark application. At that point, they'll ask you for the payment, but they're not going to be sending you mail like this. Another one I have here is from the U.S. Trademark Compliance Office. I don't know who the heck these people are. This went to a client. They're asking for $495. Yeah, that's kind of weird. And then I have one here from the U.S. Trademark Maintenance Service, the USTMS. That's the ETM, USTMS. So be on the lookout for that. This other one I didn't show, and I'll go back to it. This is the U.S. Trademark Compliance Office. I don't know if you all can see that, but if you ever get anything like that in the mail or online, reach out to your trademark attorney, reach out to me if you want to, and I'm happy to take a look at it and let you know if it's legitimate or not. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be legitimate. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about today is a trailblazing trademark. And I think that this is a fun trademark, and I wish that I had an example of it. I don't know why I don't. So I'm going to send this video to the trademark owner and tell him that my nephew wants one of these, and so he better send me one. But it's called FURZERTS, and it's spelled FURZERTS. And they make these little plush animals that come in these cups. So it's like a little furry plush animal, and it looks like a little dessert. So hence they called it FURZERTS. And that is an example of another one of my favorite types of trademarks, right? It's a trademark that's a portmanteau. So they're taking kind of two elements and they're combining it. And one thing I love about those is that they make people smile, right? Like once you kind of figure out what it is, FURZERT, oh my gosh, that's the cutest thing ever. And the other reason I think that these are great is that they're usually legally protectable, and you could usually get them registered, and they have a lot of legs, right? Like a lot of legs. They have long legs. They have legs. Portmanteau trademarks have legs because they'll last a long time. There's a lot of really cool things that you could do in marketing. They're licensable. They're trademarks that you can really grow in value. I have another escape artist, but I'm going to let her go. She'll be fine because I'm about to wrap up. But that's a great portmanteau for FURZERTS. So when you're going through the trademark creation process for your own products or services, think about whether or not some type of portmanteau might work for you. The other day I talked a little bit about coined trademarks and how we have to be really careful with coined trademarks. And coined trademarks are those that are just made up just made up term, like just a made up word that you wouldn't find in the dictionary. And it's like the Scrabble trademark. It's almost like someone took a handful of Scrabble pieces, threw them out randomly, put a few vowels and consonants together to see what came up, and then boom, they have a trademark. Those can be very good from a legal perspective because you can usually get them registered. What are the chances that someone else came up with the same Scrabble pieces for related, goods or services? So you're probably not going to get anything like a likelihood of confusion refusal, but they're really crappy in a lot of situations from a marketing perspective. And that's one thing I really like to teach and harp on is finding the nexus of a strong trademark from both the marketing and the legal perspective, right? You want to find that nexus, that point where they meet. The coined marks struggle from a marketing perspective because, first of all, you can't verbally share them. It's more challenging to verbally share them. I don't know about you, but I've been at kind of fancy restaurants before, and I'm looking at the menu, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't pronounce half the stuff on here. I'm going to go for the one that I can pronounce. So word of mouth marketing is so important these days. People like to talk about the products they love, and when they do, they talk about the brand. But what happens if you have a brand that people can't talk about, right? Like, they might be more hesitant to share the brand. But if it's, something fun like FURZERTS, and there's an emotional connection that you can have with your consumer, they're going to be a lot more likely to share your brand. So be very careful with coined marks for that very reason. And my other issue with coined marks is that they're challenging with voice-enabled searching. I think that voice-enabled searching with Alexa on Amazon or Siri or whatever, a lot of these platforms are now allowing voice-enabled searching. If someone cannot pronounce your trademark, it's going to be really hard for them to find you if they're doing search with their voice. And I think that that's going to become more and more popular. So it's just something to think about. A little hang up that I have with coined marks, something to please keep in mind. So, Jim said, you're absolutely right. Turning a brain into a verb is a massive no-no. So let me mention this about trademark usage. Please be consistent with trademark usage. Don't compromise your trademark and the strength of your trademark by putting an S at the end. Have your trademark should always be used consistently. Don't use it plurally. That's not a word. Don't use it as a plural. Don't use it as a verb, right? That's you're damaging the strength of your brand by doing that. Because when you if you come across someone else doing that, correct them. Gently correct them. Make sure if there's anyone that's using your trademark out there, because someone can use your trademark in a way that's not infringing. Maybe they're just talking about you, or maybe they made a blog post about you or whatever. That's another reason monitoring is important. You can make sure that they're properly using your trademark so that, really drives home that brain tattoo in the mind of consumers. Your trademark is a valuable asset. There are brand names out there that are more valuable probably than the tangible items they all own, right? Like Apple, maybe. Jim mentioned Apple. Harley Davidson. I don't know. They're really big on licensing. You see their trademark on everything. So, I'm sure they make a ton of money just from licensing that mark. And if they would have ever allowed that trademark to become generic or compromised, then they wouldn't be able to do that. And I know that you might be thinking, well, I'm not Apple, I'm not Harley Davidson. But these companies were in garages at one point. They started out little, just like everyone else. Like, they started somewhere. And so think big, think long term with your trademark, and make sure that it's properly being used. I am happy to take any questions that you all might have. I've got about 30 minutes here, but if there's any questions, Jim, I'd love to know what your burning trademark questions are. You have free, free, as opposed to, why don't you Google? Yeah, okay, so we really shouldn't, I say this, why don't you Google it? I'm just gonna go Googling. Um, yeah, I'm gonna do a Google brand search. I'm gonna do a Google search. And I do actually, and I know that I say that I'm guilty of using a lot of trademarks generically, but I really do try hard to make it a point to say it correctly. I really do. Or I'll just say the generic, right? Like, can someone hand me a tissue? But if I want specifically a Kleenex branded tissue, I will specifically ask for a Kleenex branded tissue. But yeah, so why don't you Google it? And yeah, I get that. I hear that a lot every day. I say it. Let's just Google it. And again, it's another situation of a trademark being used as a verb. Please don't do that. It's just, try to respect other people's IP. And of course, I think this comes down to recognizing not others' IP, but also the importance of your own. You might not be Google yet, but set out at the very beginning and try to make the proper steps, because it'll make it a lot easier in the long run. Another thing I should mention too is think about having a brand Bible for your business, about how to properly, and in that Bible you will have how your trademark is supposed to be used properly. So if you ever want to send off, your printing or whatever, or maybe have a copywriter work on any of your website content, like, you will let them know the proper usage of your trademark. Some brands have massive brand Bibles, so this is really important, especially if you have logos, and color is really important. You're going to want to have in your brand Bible proper use of your logos. You would want to show improper use, like, these are no-nos. Do not ever use our logo this way. So that's just something to think about with your with your branding. So, is there a way to trademark processes in digital products? Yes. Digital products are definitely you can, if you have a name for your digital product, yes, you would want to file a trademark for it. So I am actually getting a lot more interest in people wanting to file for names of their digital products and their courses and even their podcasts. So a lot of that comes down to, people need to protect those names. They want to be the one that stands out. But keep in mind that you do start establishing some rights to the trademark via just use of the trademark on those digital products. So you do need to consider filing at some point. And let me tell you, filing sooner rather than later, it is going to save you money. I see a lot of situations where people they start using the mark, they've been using it for 5 years, and they file 5 years later, and then we come into problems with issues with the USPTO because someone else's registration is blocking theirs. And this can get really messy. So being proactive in filing earlier is less expensive than being reactive. Being reactive is going to always cost you more money. I promise you. I know this from experience, from my own mistakes and from those that I've seen of others. So if you can mitigate that as much as possible, then do that. But yes, you can, how do you do it, Jim? You create the name. You create the name for it. And then when you file for it, you select appropriate goods and services. Of course, you should do the searching before. But remember, trademarks aren't going to protect that actual process, right? Your process itself, if it's proprietary, you might want to keep it as a trade secret. In some processes, of course, some business processes may be subject to patent protection. I'm not a patent attorney. I don't pretend to be one. I was one for 2 years, and I did not enjoy that work. But there are people that do that on a daily basis. Happy to give any referrals to people that might have patent issues that arise in their business. So anyway, Guys, I hope that this was informational. I hope it was helpful. It's going to be recorded, and I'm also going to have it on YouTube, so be sure to go there. And then any links I talked about, I know I talked about Noam, I talked about the company or the brand name FURZERTS, things like that. I will have links, so make sure you pay attention to that. And Jim, thank you so much for being here with me today. And anyone else who was on here, thank you all so much. And I hope everyone has a great Thursday. And the weekend is almost here. Try to get out in nature. I always say that. Try to get out and enjoy our beautiful Mother Nature if you can. Breathe in the fresh air and just enjoy it. Bye, guys.